In this video, the learning target we're going to look at is I can solve quadratics in standard form by using the quadratic formula. So the first thing we need to know is we need to remember the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And this is the formula where the a, b, and c, if you remember standard form, remember a standard form equation is ax squared plus bx plus c. These coefficients represent these letters. Okay, so we're just going to plug in the a, b, and c where they go in the formula. So if we look at an example here at number 1, I have x squared plus 5x plus 4 equals 0. Notice that the a is a 1, the b is a 5, and the c is a 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug these values into the formula. So x equals the opposite of b, well that's going to be negative 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times the a times the c, and then that is divided by 2a, so 2 times my a on the bottom. And then I start to simplify. So I get x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root. And if I take 5 squared, well, 5 squared is really just 25. And then I'm going to subtract 4 times 1 times 4. Well, 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. So I'm subtracting 16. And then I'm dividing everything by 2 times 1, or 2. Then if I take 25 minus 16, well, that gives me 9. So I get negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 9 divided by 2. And then remember the square root of 9, that's a perfect square. So the square root of 9 is 3. So I get x equals negative 5 plus or minus 3 divided by 2. And then because I have numbers here, I can actually break this apart into two separate answers, one for the positive and one for the negative. So I'll get x equals negative 5 plus 3 divided by 2 and negative 5 minus 3 divided by 2 as kind of two separate answers here. And then notice negative 5 plus 3, well, that's negative 2. And if I take negative 2 divided by 2, that's going to be negative 1 as an answer. And then if I take negative 5 minus 3, well, that's negative 8. And then negative 8 divided by 2 gives me negative 4 as my second answer. Okay, so we get two answers here, x equals negative 1 and x equals negative 4. All right, let's look at a second example of doing this. So if I look at number 2, it's same thing, a, b, and c, as long as it's x squared, x, and constant, okay, that needs to be in order. And then we're just going to plug those into the formula. So I get x equals the opposite of b. So because it's negative 10, it's going to be positive 10, plus or minus b squared. Well, if I take negative 10 and square it, that's going to be 100. And then I'm minusing 4 times the a times the c. And I'm dividing by 2 times whatever the a is. So if I do that quick, 2 times a is going to be 6. Okay, so I'm kind of simplifying as I'm plugging in to help save time and save some room here. And then I get x equals 10 plus or minus the square root of 100. And I need to simplify these three guys. So if I take 3 times 5, that's 15, and 15 times 4 is 60. And then I'm still dividing by 6 on the bottom. And then if I simplify that, I get x equals 10 plus or minus 100 minus 60 is 40 with 6 on the bottom. And then notice that the square root of 40 has a perfect square, right? 4 goes into 40. So I can rewrite that as x equals 10 plus or minus the square root of 4 times the square root of 10 divided by 6. And the square root of 4 is really 2. So if I move this on up over here, I really get x equals 10 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 10 divided by 6. And then the last thing is just some reducing here. because everything is getting divided by 6, I can really think of this as two separate fractions, as 10 divided by 6 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 10 over 6. And then this becomes just like reducing fractions. You're really going to get 10 divided by 6 really reduces to be 5/3. And then that's plus or minus, and then 2 divided by 6 can reduce to be 1/3. And then once again, because they're both over 3, I can put them over the same denominator. So I get 5 plus or minus the square root of 10 all over 3 as my final answer. Okay, so just some simplifying there at the end, but really what we're looking at is you're taking your A, B, and C, you're plugging them into this formula. You want to multiply these three guys together, you're squaring that B squared, combine those. If there's a perfect square, you need to simplify that out. And then this piece is just knowing fractions. So when you're dividing two things by the same denominator, you can split it. 10's getting divided by 6 and 2's getting divided by 6. Reduce those to 5/3 and 1/3. If they have the same denominator, you can recombine them. 5's getting divided by 3, 5's still getting divided by 3. The square root of 10 is getting divided by 3. The square root of 10 is still getting divided by 3. Okay, so fractions you can kind of combine and uncombine as long as the denominators are the same.